You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey Vet Rehabbers, if this is the first time you are listening to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, welcome and thank you for taking the time to listen. Please click the subscribe button so you get notified every Wednesday when I release the next episode. To my long-time listeners, thank you for your continued support. I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, today's podcast is a snippet from last year's Vet Rehab Summit Think Tank. We discussed the problems when recruiting and onboarding staff and why having a clear process is important when getting new members into your team. If you don't know about the Vet Rehab Summit, this is our annual online veterinary rehabilitation conference. This year, it is on the 10th and the 11th of November. If you're an Onlinepethealth member, you get free VIP access to this event. Before we head over to the podcast, I want to say a thank you to Zoe from Performance Vet Physiotherapy for the shout out about the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast on Instagram. Zoe, thank you so much. Please email me on meg@onlinepethealth.com. I would love to send you a limited edition veterinary rehabilitation mug. If you have not already, please come and join us in our online communities on Facebook. We have 4 Facebook groups. They're called the Small Animal Vet Rehabbers, Hydro Vet Rehabbers, Equine Vet Rehabbers, and our Business Vet Rehabbers. Now, there are some real nuggets in last year's Think Tank. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one.
Hello, Vet Rehabbers. We are back, and can you believe it is the final power-up of Vet Rehab Summit 2022. We are so excited to see you all pouring into the think tank. While you are all coming in, I would love to introduce Nada Robinson. Nada is from Curacao Vet, who is our proud gold sponsor this year. So I'd love to hand over to you for a moment, Nada.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Yeah, and hi, everybody. And it's just an honor to be here and be participating. So a little bit about me and my company. I'm an osteopathic physician first in the U.S. and then a veterinarian, and I taught at Colorado State University Vet School for 20 years. And now we teach in a separate building, a separate school for physicians, physical therapists, and veterinarians and veterinary technicians. The longest thing that we've been teaching is since like 98. We've been teaching medical acupuncture for veterinarians and then also physicians. I spent 15 years writing this book at 17 and a half pounds. I mean, 7.5 pounds feels kind of heavier right now. But just looking at the different layers of the body with the visible human acupuncture and anatomy database. And that's what I'm bringing to animals also, is thinking about structure and function, whether it's movement or just acupuncture points. And, integrative rehabilitation is also what we teach. So a whole gamut of things. And we're expanding our openings for the registrations to include non-veterinarians insofar as looking at the anatomy. And when COVID happened, we developed what we called EMAV, but now it's just going to be part of everything where you can learn how to do acupuncture and receive certification just with the online learning. We have videos, a lot of interaction, a lot of coaching in your practice, in your home, with your animals, with your patients, and also on site. So what we're doing now is extending that to non-veterinarians who, are able to practice acupuncture within their realm, so that the main focus would be learning about the anatomy and the physiology. So a lot of strong basic science, a lot of hands-on. So I just wanted to make that announcement today. So email me at curacao.org.
Thank you so much, Nada, and thank you for being our proud gold sponsor this year. So I'm just going to go through my list of lecturers that are in the think tank, and I'm just going to say out your name, and if you can say hi to everyone, introduce yourself, and then we can hand over to Anae to get going. So first up, I've got Jenny Taylor.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny Taylor. I am the COO of VROMP, and ultimately my education comes a little bit differently than a lot of your backgrounds. I am an accountant. I'm a CPA by the profession, but I have spent a lot of time in the finance world, business development, strategy, all over the board with business consulting and things like that. So about 3 or 4 years ago, my business partner and I, Brian Burgess, started VROMP, and we did our first partnership with Dr. Julia Tomlinson out at Twin Cities Rehab in Burnsville, Minnesota. So we've been very hard at work for the last several years now, trying to increase the accessibility of rehab. So a lot goes into that. You guys are working at that every day. We are trying to crack the code and understanding how do you build and scale a profitable practice so that we can all do more rehab and provide more veterinary rehab services to patients out there today. So we are currently at 4 partner practices at VROMP today. One of those is Lisa Mason, who you guys see here on the panel, out at FBR in DeLand, Florida. So we are continuing to grow through our existing practices and hoping to be at 7 next year. So really excited about everything to do and going forward. But my role specifically is working with each of our partner practices to support growth initiatives that they have. You guys all know how hard it is to go and serve your patients every day and also grow your practices. So that is really what we do, is support those practices to do that. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And Cara Amstutz. Hi, Cara.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for inviting me to this think tank. What a wonderful group of women that we have on this think tank. I'm just honored to be a part of this group. Yeah, my name is Cara Amstutz. I am a veterinarian, and about 10 years into my practice of veterinary medicine, I totally drank the Kool-Aid when it comes to rehabilitation. I just dove head in and really was looking at a way to love being a veterinarian again. So for me, rehabilitation has been a way to renew my passion of being a veterinarian. And I have been a practicing rehab vet for now almost 10 years, and then went through the whole IVAPM, pain practitioner certification, then went through acupuncture, and now just finished up my sports medicine and rehabilitation residency. And I get to sit for boards in February. So everybody, fingers crossed that works out good for all involved. So like I said, rehab has changed my whole life. My husband and I started a small house call veterinary practice 22 years ago, and we grew it to a little practice in the strip mall. And then we built a practice just really so I could have a rehab gym. And we ran that, and now that practice has grown and is moving into a standalone practice. So I know how to start a practice and grow it. And that's been an exciting adventure. But within the last couple of years, we actually sold our practice, and that allowed me to look at transitioning for the next half of my career, which is to dive deep into education, because I love what I do so much. I want other people to know what we do, and I want the rehab bug. I want everybody to catch the rehab bug. I want everybody to know how wonderful this is for themselves, because I truly believe it saved my soul, but also for their patients and their patients' owners. So again, I'm just so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cara. Lisa Mason.
Hi. Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate you guys having me today. I am Lisa Mason, and I am the managing veterinarian of Florida Veterinary Rehabilitation. And I am the second practice of VROMP, as Jenny was mentioning. And it's very exciting to grow the practice over the last 5 years. Pretty much since I separated my practice. We are now a 3-doctor practice, 3 rehabilitation veterinarian practice, and just moved into a brand new 3,400 square foot facility. So we're very excited. We have a growing staff and have accomplished and succumbed a lot of problems that we will go over today during our think tank. So from, actual reality of practice, I can talk about how to get over some of these problems. So I'm really excited to be able to go over the struggles that we all are facing on a day-to-day basis, and to be able to know that we have a community of people together that we can all work through this. So really excited to be here today, and happy to share the knowledge that, I can. And my certifications are basically just in rehab, acupuncture, pain management. and have found myself to be fairly good at business, but I have no degree in business and have really enjoyed learning more. And Jenny is actually a wonderful person to learn from. So really excited to be here today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And last but not least, we've got Joe Paul.
Hi guys, I'm really very honoured to be invited to come and talk to you tonight. I am a chartered physiotherapist and I'm based in Scotland. I have worked with people until about 3 years ago. I started my equine rehab business in 1989. So I'm almost at the end of my rehabilitation career rather than at the beginning of the career. My natural environment is being a clinician and a clinical educator for physiotherapists that are transferring their skills to veterinary physio. And I've worked with both the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons and the Hartbury course and the Liverpool University course, as well as a clinical educator. But I guess the reason I'm here is we're looking at new trends in the business. And I'm now president of the Register of Animal Musculoskeletal Practitioners, which I believe is one of the first voluntary regulatory bodies for chiropractors, physiotherapists, and osteopaths who work in animal care. And we are trying to set standards and make sure we keep these standards and try to have a body that not only promotes the best in clinical excellence, but also protects the public and their animals. So we make sure our clients, our registrants, keep their standards up, and we provide a forum where if there is a concern or about any of our registrants, then we have a complaint system which we can work with and try and support. So we do believe this is the first one in the world, and we are about, it started in 2016. I've been president for a year, but I joined the council as education officer in 2018. So I think that's probably why I'm here, but I'm a physiotherapist.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Joe. Okay, guys, so now I'm going to hand over to one of our own, Anae Lloyd, and she's going to take us through this think tank. It's over to you, Anae.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Vish. So with this think tank, we really wanted to cater it around you guys, the vet rehabbers that are in practice. And I think you can see that from the people that are on the panel as well. And we wanted to make sure that we're discussing things that are relevant to you, challenges that you have on a day-to-day basis. So a few months ago, we identified a few key areas as a panel that we thought would be relevant to you. And we sent out a survey to kind of get your feel for how relevant those areas are and what exactly your challenges are in those areas. So I'm going to share the results of that survey for you guys as kind of a kickboard for us to start this discussion. And so the first kind of area that we identified as a challenge was a business area. And I think most of you will agree the business side of things is generally where we're stuck. And Jenny pointed out that the struggle that she finds most is in relation to staffing. So do you struggle with staffing in any of these areas? We asked you guys, and most of you struggle with recruiting and onboarding, or a large percentage, I should rather say that, as well as team growth planning, and then training and development. And some of you said, a whole bunch of different things or other things. So the questions that I'd like to present to our panelists, and probably more towards Jenny and Lisa, but what can go wrong when we're recruiting new staff? And what are some of the things that make this difficult for us?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I've got a number of notes on this because, as you mentioned, we're in the throes of facing a lot of the challenges in this daily. Very challenging environment that we're in right now with a lot of the, I would say, industry dynamics that are going on in veterinary medicine, as well as, I would say, just the wage inflation that's going on in the macroeconomy. So we are very honed in on, I think, the things that are really helping drive success in these areas. And all of these things, recruitment and onboarding, team growth planning, team member satisfaction, retention, training and development, these are all so closely integrated that they really have to be looked at, I think, comprehensively and as part of an entire ecosystem, if that makes sense. So one of the things that we have found to be very, very helpful is to start with an actual team growth plan. I'll touch on this a little bit more later in some of the other questions that we see on the business side, but being able to really put together the vision of how your team is going to build out and grow out over time, even though you're not going to necessarily be hiring on board all of those team members in the near future, is incredibly important to think about. How do you develop those team members? What is that investment in your team going to look like? Really, what are the requirements for success? I think the most important thing that I can take away from all of the practices that we have met, that we have come into contact with, and that we've partnered with, your team is your number one investment. If we get to the actual financials, even a very mature practice, in a scaled practice, your team members and your cost and investment related to your team is going to be up to 70% of your expenses. So just massive. And that's just on paper. The intangibles, the culture, everything that you're building and what translates to your clients and your patients all comes from your team. I think if we kind of answer to some of those questions around what are the challenges that we face, I think understanding exactly what team members you need on your team, making sure that you understand the market dynamics on wages and doing wage benchmarking. I think that's something that a lot of people find it challenging to do, is really understand and know, what do I pay for this role? What is a front desk reception making? What is a assistant role making today in this market? All very market specific, but being able to go out and feel confident about the ranges that you're offering and what it is that you're asking that person to do. So that leads me also to making sure you've got clear job descriptions, clear expectations, clear roles and responsibilities. That's something all of our practices are still trying to clarify and working at every day, because you're in this constant dynamic of change, especially when you're growing. So it's just when you start to get comfortable with something, it's time to now level up and get to the next role, and things are changing again. So I think one of the things that is very important too is being proactive, being in I think behind the ball, I should say, on recruitment is the worst place to be, and chasing people, chasing things. It's taking up to 12 to 18 months right now to recruit a rehab veterinarian, which is very challenging. I think it depends on the market, of course, and some luck and magic that happens from time to time, but being proactive, I think, is incredibly important. Of course, that comes with some of the challenges of maybe investing ahead in some of your team members, which is hard to do sometimes. But making sure you have those critical roles in place to start off is just very important. I think expecting to spend a lot of time on in-house training and development is just the way it's going to be. It's very hard, I think, to find team members that walk in day one with everything that you need to succeed. And I think that's actually part of what makes rehab wonderful, is that we do a lot of that in-house, I think, hands-on, on the fly, on the job, applied knowledge training. And so there's a lot of wonderful, obviously, certification programs that exist out there, but I think a lot of the training and the development that you get is going to be inside the practice and what you're delivering to your patients and working with your team to understand each day. So I think just having that expectation that you're maybe not going to find that perfect person that you're bringing in, and that you're going to be investing in time and effort into those people that you want to build in your team, is a reality, but also I think something that can really benefit you as a practice, because you're able to help mold and identify those people that really fit your team well, and your kind of desires and how you want to build your business as well. My last point on here is just making sure that you're developing, I think, a recruitment process that you can use over and over again. It's really hard to rework and, I think, start from scratch each time. That's one of the things that we've been working really hard at, is really having a clear step-by-step process for recruitment that allows us to really screen and get to the right applicants quickly. So I think this is just something that comes with time and experience as you start to understand who it is you're looking for. I think one of the things that Lisa would say is that doing working interviews is incredibly important to figuring out who the right team members are and who your top candidates might be. So those are some of my biggest, I think, best practices, I would say. And I'm more than happy, Lisa, if you have anything to add or if there's other questions.
Yeah, I'll just tag on top of that. I think knowing what the core values are of your business is very important. And that way, when you're going into these interviews, you already know what face you want to put towards your customer. So we talk about this being very much so a red carpet service industry. And in order to have that, you want those people that have a core value of compassion, of empathy. And how can you find that? Just by doing, going through multiple resumes on whatever it is, Indeed or one of the other services that you look through to look at resumes, it's really hard to identify that. So you have to figure out systems that can allow you to do that, whether it be through personality tests that you do with them, or by during the working interview, just somebody shows up and doesn't want to pet a dog because they're sitting in the room, they're not the right person. So it's some of those things you're not going to get from a piece of paper, and you have to go through multiple applicants before you really hit on that person that's going to align with your core values, or else they're not going to work. And you're going to spend more time and money on the training and then deciding you don't like them at the end of the day. You can pretty much train just about anyone to do a lot of these techniques, or to be an assistant or to be a receptionist, if they have those common core values that you do as well. The other thing is don't stop with somebody that's maybe somewhat okay. Just keep working through it. You will eventually find that person, and it is so worth it when you finally get to that person. And then you find a way to hold on to them, and you find ways that you can really appease them, whether it be through, insurance, or through goals, or through even giving bonuses, or however you can find a way to encourage them, giving them a professional development plan and making them really feel a part of your company is the way that you can really keep these really awesome people on staff with you, despite the economic problems that we're having.
Can I ask either Lisa or Jenny, how important do you find it at interview stage or at recruitment stage to actually get the candidate to tell you what they expect from you? All of these things are what you are going to do for them, but do you have a strategy where you ask them what they expect from you, or what they envisage the post is going to involve?
Yeah. So I will say that from the level of the veterinarian, or from the level of, say the rehab assistant level, we do a written interview where we kind of ask them, what is it that you want? So like, what are your goals? What salary do you want? How many days a week do you want? Like, do you want insurance? Do you want whatever? So I think from a higher level, yes, but in the form of a written interview where they can just kind of write it out. They're not under stress to tell you in person what they want, because they think that can be a challenge. But then when you're talking about kind of the lower levels of employment, I would say that I think we mention it during an interview, but it's not something that we really emphasize with the lower levels.
Hey, I just would like to point out one thing that Jenny said that I thought was very interesting, that I think that everyone needs to kind of take into consideration when they're formulating their budget to figure out, how to staff their practice. And that was that a rehab practice, the staffing can be up to 70%. That is huge. For those of you who are in a traditional general veterinary practice, the number that floats around is 18 to 22%. You cannot make a rehab practice fit into the mold of a GP practice. And there are so many of us out there fighting that day in and day out knowledge of, thinking that rehab should run with the same key indicators that a general practice does, and it just does not. So I think that is a huge challenge for all of us to really point out that a rehabilitation practice cannot be directly compared to a general practice. And we have to throw away all of those old benchmarks that we put a GP practice on, and really we're forging our new benchmarks as we go, right? So I just think that's
thank you for emphasizing that. Yeah,
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it that you said that, because it's so true. And that really just takes all of the numbers and completely flips them, and bringing that point in of how much you need to invest because of how much it's going to cost you is all the more important to have adequately trained people on your team. And then once you've got them, keep them. So I loved your ideas on how to retain your employees. Thank you.
Can I just interject there for a moment? I have Amy saying, how do we maintain a high professional level of service while struggling with staffing issues? What can be delegated and to whom? What services need professional degrees and or licensure versus we can train the right person? Hashtag can of worms. So who's up to chat about that?
I can talk about it real quick on some of my experiences. Number one, you have to know your laws in your area, because it definitely is different in every state and every country who can do what. So you have to know and recognize that first and foremost. I think trying to leverage people for the things that is not required of a veterinarian or of a PT or of a certified professional, those things need to be leveraged by very capable individuals that are just not certified, which again is going to vary in different areas. So for instance, in my area, nobody else can do acupuncture but the veterinarian. So that is something that we have to delegate to specific people versus me saying, sure, my technician who might be certified in acupuncture could potentially place needles, maybe doesn't know the history or what they're actually doing, but they can't. So I cannot leverage that person. So keeping that in mind, and then when you're scheduling, you have to make sure that you allow yourself time to do both things, rehab medicine as well as acupuncture medicine. And then on top of that, getting the people that are, maybe a junior therapist who you are potentially going to get certified and leverage their skills while they are also in a professional development track, which is going to keep them interested and keep them on staff versus losing them, and you're training them to be someone that could potentially get that certification, I think is also important.
I think as an advocate for the allied professionals, I would absolutely agree with Lisa. The different laws in different countries, and for you guys in the States, different states, is really confusing and probably has to be looked at to try and get a little bit more consistency. Certainly in terms of what you might call certification, we would just call qualification.
Mm-hmm.
We would expect our osteopaths, our chiropractors and our physios to have at least a BSc with 1,000 hours of clinical practice included in that course. Now, once you've done that course, you're perfectly capable to work within your scope of practice. And this is the frustration, I think, and this is what stops people from actually maintaining their veterinary qualifications and continuing to work with in the veterinary industry, because some people, you just do not get to do the work that you've been trained to do. And so I think we've got to, it's really difficult because of all the different legislation that goes around, but this is one of the things that we are trying to smooth out in the UK anyway, and then we're in conversation with people in other countries, is that we're trying to work out what actually is the scope of practice for a vet, what's the scope of practice for us as allied professionals, and also then looking at a pathway of education for people that are maybe not at that BSc level, maybe massage therapists, sports therapists, who may have a different scope of practice. So I think we've got a lot of work to do on our scope of practice and what we feel comfortable in doing. And if we did that, then maybe there would be more people out there that are competent and to be recruited. So you don't need maybe 7 rehab vets in a practice with the wages that they require. you have a mix of skill set, and each person has their scope of practice they could work to.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. Now, don't forget to bookmark our next Vet Rehab Summit. This is on Friday the 10th and Saturday the 11th of November. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Onlinepethealth members, you get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.